ready.
Welcome to another episode of Buff in the Rough. Today we're going to talk with Billy Gray about hunting 17-inch Beagles, the history of outdoor dog supply, and learn the good and bad of today's tracking systems for your favorite hounds. Help me welcome Billy Gray to the program. Hey Billy, how are you?
Absolutely wonderful. How are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. I really appreciate you taking time out to spend with us today and talk a little bit about hounds and equipment.
Well, I appreciate you having me. Hopefully I can help and give a little education out there.
Great. Well, for those that maybe don't know who Billy Gray is, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? And Billy, that can be either your background in hunting, kind of what you hunt, what kind of hounds you hunt with, or it could be what you do outside of hunting, because that's always interesting too. I always think it's fascinating to know what people do when they're not hunting.
Well, I don't know how long you want this podcast to be, but we could be here for a while. Probably either one of them. So to make, I'll start with the hound part since I got my first set of hounds when I was probably around 19 or 20. Told the wife that I was bringing them home because a buddy of mine, and I was going to have them for about 2 weeks. Oh yeah, here we are. That was 30 years ago, and or almost 30 years ago, and obviously we still have hounds today. And I started with kind of a long-legged Beagle, which here we're in Virginia, and we hunt in Virginia, North Carolina. So most of ours we run on deer, which now I got a bunch of buddies that rabbit hunt and do the same. But we've always had long-legged, people call them 50/50s. Actually a bunch of ours are registered as Fox Beagles, and that's got to be, pretty much everything we do has got to be 17 and less in our field trial world. But, I've been doing that I've been in the field trial world myself for 25 years, and now my daughter, Emmy, she's pretty much taken that over, and she's been doing very well out there. I've grown up outdoors. Like I said, it started, I've deer hunted since I was young. I love to offshore fish. I've got a little boat that we keep in North Carolina that we go out of Oregon Inlet in, and we do all kinds of fishing. We're here in the river. We fish the big blue cats, and it doesn't take much to keep me entertained.
A true outdoorsman.
Yeah, we like to stay outdoors. Long as I can wear flip flops most of the time, I'm in good shape. Now I do bite the bullet when it gets to be about 30 degrees outside. And I also bite the bullet when we're in the swamps and there's a lot of briars, but beyond that, that's about it. But now we enjoy the outdoors. My kids are all enjoy the outdoors. Matter of fact, we just bear hunted Saturday. We ourselves didn't have any luck, but the group of guys got a couple, and we try to do a little bit of everything.
Well, that sounds like a good life, my friend.
Oh, somebody's got to do it.
That's right. Might as well be you. Well, I'm fascinated by the field trialing with a Fox Beagle, and you said they have to be a minimum of or a maximum of 17 inches.
Yeah, maximum of 17 inches.
Okay,
that's pretty much measured relaxed behind the shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
We have if you ever get in and you look, there's been nationals for it for years, and now we have Virginia State. So there's a lot of big hunts that are pretty much from here to Mississippi. I got buddies in Arkansas, Louisiana. We've been out to Missouri. So it's a fairly big. It's still kind of a niche sport, but it's really grown in the last 15 or 20 years, and we've always enjoyed it. And in the Fox Beagle, we've had everything from outside hunts that have been the same. Here we had the Virginia Outside Beagle Association, which this year has been a struggle because basically some laws that were enacted in Virginia, and some of the big logging companies and all have made it to where the insurance policies and that, and hopefully that'll be straightened out in the future because they were huge fundraisers for the clubs. They were big money makers for the communities, and these were hunts that you'd sometimes have 350 dogs at, and it's just always been something. It's a lot of fun. You could accumulate points. You made field champions. So that was actually something this first year that there was not an actual outside association. A bunch of guys got in and they ran in the pens in Virginia and made a really nice series. And I think that was really successful. But There's a lot of us that would still love to be. The dogs are primarily outdoor dogs, and we really always love that outside series. But
Well,
you got the
I want to ask you a question about the field trial itself. So I have no
okay.
idea what that looks like so how does it, just big picture, you don't have to get into the weeds too much, but for somebody like me who's never been to that kind of a field trial, how do you keep track of how do you score a hound? How do they win? How they get those points during the field trial? And like how many are hunting at a
Okay,
time?
yeah, okay. So it's pretty easy. All right. So the clubs, every dog is numbered. So just like y'all have in your series, where most of the dogs, that's where we do a lot of field trial blankets.
Hmm.
So every dog is numbered. So basically, how it works is most of the time these are hunt clubs putting them on. So a lot of times we'll have 30 or 40 judges, and they're spread out amongst their block. A lot of times they're going to chase the dogs that go. So basically, it's going to be you see obviously they got to see a piece of game first, and then the dogs are marked accordingly as they cross the path. So
Hmm.
the first dog's 30, second dog's 40, third dog's 50. Well, the first dog gets a 35-point crossing. The second dog gets a 30-point crossing. And then so on down till you get to a pack score, which is anything after the fifth dog, I guess that would be. And then typically each dog after that would get 15 points.
Hmm.
Some hunts did it to where they went down to 5, and it was only 5 points you got if they scored more than the 7 dogs.
Hmm.
So, but basically at the end of the hunt, the dogs that has the most points is going to be the winner. And so, I mean, it's relatively simple as far as that. And the judge's got to be scored. And now outside hunts typically you didn't have a lot of scratching. A lot of times, they're a little bit of a different dog. These are people's deer dogs, and a lot of
Hmm.
times if a chase ends or somebody gets picked up or they go out of bounds, it's hard to bring them back to a place where there was 300 dogs jumped and get a jump. So those rules were a little different, but basically the dog at the end of the day that wins the hunt is the one that has the most points, and that's by being so a dog that has. Say he has 10 first place crossings, that's going to accumulate to 350 points. And the next dog has 9 first place crossings and a second, then he's going to have 295 points, but that's not going to be above the other. And then any dogs that typically tie would either be broke by first place crossings or would be broke by time. And some clubs do it differently, depends, but it can be broke either way on which dog will get the higher place.
Hmm.
So no, it's if you ever got to come to, I mean, there's like I said, when you go to a hunt and there's 300 dogs, and a lot of times there's going to be 70, 80 trucks there, and it's really organized. And most of the time in the Beagle hunts, you'd have some people that go out and try to stay on top of the dogs, but most of the time we hunted really big blocks of woods. Most of the hunts we tried to organize were in really rural areas and areas you didn't have to worry about them, and so most of the time I let the judges stay on top of them and score them best they could. And, we always had a really, really good time. So,
What?
I mean, there's always grills going, and, there's on cold days they'd work on like getting a fire barrel that was controlled. And no, we did. We always had a good time.
Well, that does sound like a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
And then the pen hunts are a little different. Of course, obviously they're more controlled.
mhm.
There's multiple series. Anybody that ever be interested in trying to, mostly in North Carolina, it's mostly coyotes.
Mhm.
The pens in Virginia is typically foxes.
Mhm.
But no, it's let's see, the VFBA, which would be the Virginia Fox Beagle Association. That's the one in Virginia. And then they've got a really good North Carolina series. That's the one, matter of fact, my daughter did very well in that this year. That's a new series, and man, if I'd have had any thought to me, I could even got the phone number. So if anybody was curious, but if y'all get online and get on Facebook, all the hunts and the results are done, and it'll give you a good idea. But they have some beautiful plaques and prizes, and no, the North Carolina Association is really, really doing well, and it's getting a great participation, and they enjoy it.
Well, I want to ask you another question about that. So, can you use the same beagles to run deer, to run coyotes, to run fox, or do you have separate dogs for each of those?
I can tell you, and it's just like anything else. Most of the guys that get into the pens really good like that, they're going to have predominantly pen dogs.
I got
We
you.
run all ours on both. We always have. And, but a dog that's really great in the pen, and it's, I mean, I can tell you, I had a little dog buck that I think when it came down to it, he ended up winning in the plus of 20 hunts. He was an incredible pen dog. Won the High Point Hound in the outside the very first year we took him. But I will tell you, if you had to pick him out of my entire pack to go put him in the woods and jump a deer, and he would not have won that. That was so. You can have a dog that's incredible in a pen, and I'm not going to say he was a bad deer dog, but he definitely, we had better dogs in the pack, but there was nothing out there that could touch him in the pen at the time. And so it's very, very hard to get that dog just going to make you look incredible in both.
Mm-hmm. Well, Billy, I'm so happy that you shared a little bit about your background and what you do with hounds. I think that's fascinating. I really appreciate it. But I met you through your business, Outdoor Dog Supply. And could you just maybe tell us a little bit about that business, maybe how it got started, what you're into, and anything you want to promote, and then we'll roll into. I've got a loaded question for you after this.
That's perfect. All right, what got us into Outdoor Dog Supply, it's funny how things happen. We had always tried to get into wildlife and Johnson, and back when it was beep collars, we've always been in the pet business. We installed underground fences, and, so we did all that training with pets. I always hunted, and they wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole because there was a company here called Carolot that was the biggest catalog distribution for, I think, both Johnson and wildlife at one time, and they were about 15 minutes up the road. A good buddy of mine, Alan Johnson, his dad was a coon hunter. He had gotten a 220 and DC 30 collars. And same thing, he told me what the battery life was and all that. He said, man, you got to check these things out. They're incredible. They're not going to work here, Alan. The battery life isn't going to work. We hunted a bunch of swamp. There were times you had to leave dogs out for a day or two, and we were out in boats trying to get them back. And, just the battery life itself seemed like there was no way it was ever going to work. And so finally, one day during hunting season, he brought 3 or 4 collars, and we put them on the dogs. And it's still one of the funniest things I've ever, because we dropped them off the high ground, and sure enough, the dogs jumped. They went all out in the swamp, went all the way out to the river, did a big loop, and they came back. They were coming back, and 3 of mine got hung on a little island out there. And it's a little high island covered with reeds. Well, they sat there for about 4 hours, and I kept looking at the GPS. I couldn't believe it. That was old Dallas, one of the best dogs I've ever owned. And so, sure enough, about 4 o'clock, about an hour before dark, hour and a half before dark, I see them start working off the island. I'm like, all right. They jumped, came in, ran a great big old doe to the hill. We killed it. Now, let me tell you, any other time I'd have said, they're out there running that deer in the swamp all day, and they finally drove it to the hill, and we killed it. Oh, no. They sunned themselves on that island for 4 hours, and then finally realized it was getting dark and wanted to come home, and just happened to stumble on the way there. And so it taught us just as much what the dogs were doing. And at the time, I was like, man, I've got to have one of these. And then he let me borrow them for the first field trial season at the outside, VOBA. And the very first hunt I went to, I can't remember how many collars. It was 6 or 7 DC 30 collars he had. We put all those on the dogs and beep collars. And then I had one dog I couldn't put a GPS collar on. And if I didn't have to leave that one dog in Emporium, the rest of them I had before trophies. And we had never had that before. So I come home, tell my wife, I said, look, I'm not going to hunting season without these collars. Well, being in the business at the time, we had made some phone calls. And I think it was Green Valley is one of our distributors at the time, which was years ago. And we happened to, so we had called Green Valley and started getting collars in, and next thing you know, my phone starts ringing, and we just knew so many people. And I'd done it more for myself at first, and so we made some phone calls, and make a long story short, found another distributor that we were able to get them a little less for at the time. And then finally, after 6 months, we were already doing more volume than it would have taken to become a distributor or a dealer. And we contacted Garmin, and It was, and at that time we had been doing the pet fences, and within 6 months after that, we had to sell the pet fence side of the business because it had already grown to where there was no way we were going to be able to do both of them. And at the time it was good, and we started working on all the aftermarket product. I mean, things like the Quick Connect kits and stuff like that. Those were things I can't tell you how many different parts of stuff I ordered, and I mean, I would spend weeks. I can't tell you how many hours I have for antennas on the roof that we drove and tested and, trying to get. And that's why a lot of the aftermarket products that we have worked so well. And, that's even little things like quick connects and things that made it a whole lot easier to get in and out of your truck. And, it also protects them a whole lot better from the radio. It kind of acts like a big heat shrink. People talk about the units, but so there's lots of things that we found and did, and it just helped the business grow.
Well, I tell you, that's a heck of a story, and it's going to help me segue into my question just so much easier, knowing that
Okay.
you are a hunter that is all about using technology to help make your hunting experiences better, more pleasurable. And so I wanted to ask you this, and I've been wanting to ask somebody this for a while. And as we
Okay.
get close to the holidays, everybody's thinking about what they want in their stocking this year, and it's always going to come up with houndsmen and these and hound hunters tracking systems. Garmin is kind of the household old steady and true that's been around for a while, but there's new players out there. There's Dogtra and Sport Dog and maybe some others I don't know about. And I've heard things. I've heard people talk about the newer ones that you can track using your like your smartphone, maybe a tablet or something. I've never seen one. Up close and personal, I've never used one. But I can't think of a better person to ask for just your opinion, as long as it doesn't get you in trouble with folks that are
Oh,
sponsoring
no,
you.
no, no. One thing you'll be always learn from me is I'm sure even there's plenty of people at Garmin will tell you I do not hold back. I have a very, and that's something, and I'll say it exactly how it is.
Well, have you used
They
these
say,
other ones? And if you have, could you maybe tell us the pluses, negatives about them with your experiences?
all right, well, look, I'll go through. So Dogtra is going to be the very next one. If anybody in the real hound world was to get, Dogtra is the next one that would be something even remotely comparable. All right, now how Dogtra works is Dogtra is a little different. So Dogtra is just a little unit device that links with your phone. So you've got to have your phone on in order to be able to actually physically track with it. It doesn't have a separate device like, the Garmin Alpha or even the 10 that you can still look on and see what direction. Instead, this is just a box that links your phone and then your unit itself. Now, I'll start with the pluses of Ultra. It's a much less expensive unit. So the unit itself in the initial package is, God, I think it's like $400.
Can you compare?
Collars run about $250 a piece.
I was going to say, can you compare that to something comparable in a Garmin? Just
Yeah,
so
I mean
folks can.
the Alpha 10, but that's still the problem, and I think that's kind of where. So you can still get the unit and a collar for the $400. So their units running in the $150 to link it with your phone. Where pretty much any Garmin stuff now. You can now purchase used still Garmin products that are comparable to that. You can get even an Alpha 100 for, a little over $300 used, if I'm not mistaken. And then if you wanted to get some even the 15s, you're still going to be a little more expensive than a dog trip, but you're going to be within $150 of the cost of a dog trip.
Okay. Well, sorry, I didn't mean to get
Now,
you sidetracked on that. I just thought that might be a good spot to compare the two. So Garmin's a lot more expensive. It just is.
Oh, there's no question.
Yeah.
No, it is. And I mean, it is really apples to apples. Now, I mean, I will tell you, and I still have guys, and there's rabbit guys that at the end of the day, if you're not looking at a screen all the time and you're really just looking to find your dog if something happens, those units do work. It's just much harder on a dog treat unit to say, I mean, things that you are so nice with the Alpha, and I'll go right into the rabbit side of it, because when dogs are tight and they're close, it's a lot like when we're running the field trial dog, and you're trying to break puppies and you're trying to see what they're doing. I mean, these are so accurate and so tight you're zoomed in, you see which dog picks a checkup. You see when the older dogs have to start honoring that younger. You're seeing what the dogs are doing much closer because it's true real time, and you can zoom in, and the way you can set your arrows and different things, you really get to see what stuff's doing a little better between the two of them. Now, I will say one advantage of Dog Tree, if you do get a link to your phone and all, it does have extremely good bird's eye. Because basically, if I'm not mistaken, Dog Tree's Google Earth. But, you're looking at it on your phone. It's a little more high depth. But then the disadvantage is you're always having to track through your phone. It's extremely rough on battery life.
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely rough on battery life, and it's also every time you get out of a car, you would have to go in and you got to work on relinking it each time you get back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the most frustrating parts we had in using it and doing some of the testing. Nice thing about it with the Garmin, even the one I have in here linked to a drive track, or I have it drink to, the tread. When I would take that, when I come out, I'd have to get everything relinked back together again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and that is a little bit of the disadvantages. Again, if, you go out and all you're trying to do is find that dog if something major happens, that dogs are still definitely going to work for you. Can you get on there and see where he is on your phone? Yes, absolutely. Then you're also going to find that one of the things people first talked about, and I know Garmin's a livid pain in the tail. We've had some major issues with products as far as some warranty stuff and just having products that came off the assembly line that were not the best. But that's one thing. They've always been really good at taking stuff back. They have a very good return process. Anything y'all buy from us, we're able to turn around and we'll send a box of stuff back. So it allows us to get a new one out to y'all much quicker most of the time than any. Where Dog Tree was much harder to deal with on the warranty side. They wanted to look to see if they could fix something. They could. And so that was the other thing, is you also found sometimes if you had to warranty something, there was a little more of a delay in that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really the difference. So technology-wise, one you're dealing with through your phone, it's an app. Garmin does have it now to where all their devices link to the phone, but I'll be straight out. The app still isn't worth it's not very good. So it's something that they said they're going to work on. It's definitely a little better than it was at the start, but there's a lot of things that they could do with their app also to link to the phone, to where you can see on there, it's Garmin Explorer. There's a lot of things they could do that would make that a whole lot better that they have not done yet.
Well, I love competition. Competition of ideas, competition period. It makes everybody better. So is there anybody else on the horizon? Does Sport Dog have anything? Or anyone else?
I think the major problem is Sport Dog started with something. They've got the Trexer. But again, it's even more generic. Now, it did have a handheld. You don't have the mapping. You don't have the distance. And I mean, that's why you don't see a few of the bird guys. There's guys that have 2 or 3 dogs that seem to like them, that have gotten used to them. Mm-hmm. But I mean, we might sell one Sport Dog for every 1,000 Garmin units we sell. I mean, it's literally, we don't move that many. And I could be off on them numbers a little, but it's just not as simple to use. And it obviously just doesn't have the same technical features that you're getting with the Garmin's units. So we've heard, I really think the issue is the one reason Garmin is so good is because they started with so much technology to begin with. And there's so many things in these that are patented, and so it's just very, very hard for, say, a dog company, because I know Magnum, not Magnum, oh my Lord, Marshall was looking really, really hard into it. I think they would have made a really good unit. But it's just so hard to get past the actual GPS things and the mapping you have to buy, and where Garmin's buying it for not just the dog stuff, but that mapping's going with their car stuff, marine stuff, all their outdoors. And so there's so many other products that they're able to go in, and they have so much more negotiating power, that I think that's where most companies seem to struggle, is the cost to get something that's comparable is going to be astronomical, all on the part of, with already a good product out there, how much of that market are you going to be able to take?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you this. So for folks that are listening, most people listening are probably rabbit hunters first and foremost, but a lot of these guys
Okay.
they're just like you. You want bear hunting this weekend? I mean, they do different things. So they may have an old coonhound tied out back, or into deer hunting too. For the average hunter, what would you recommend one over the other, or does it depend on your budget? I mean, how when people call up and ask for advice, because I know they do, how do you advise them or steer them towards one or the other? Or are there cases where you say you're better off buying a used Garmin than a new one of these other units? I mean, what's your
Well,
opinion on that? How do you?
I'll tell you one of the things with us is it's going to be very hard. I mean, to me, I'm always going to be more. Even the rabbit hunter, I can tell you. And if you get on there and you look, once somebody's used the Garmin unit for a little bit of time, it's very, very hard to switch over to anything else. I can't tell you how many when Dogtra first came out with that unit, we had. We had multiple people send trade-ins in, and they switched over to Dogtra, and I can tell you, I bet almost all of them within a relatively short amount of time were sending the Dogtra stuff back to trade back to Garmin.
I got you.
It's because once you've used it, now that is in the hound world with a bunch of dogs running.
Mm-hmm.
Now I've also heard, hey, guys with a couple squirrel dogs. I know guys that have deer hunted with the Dogtra, and that's what they started with, and they swear they loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see anybody anymore. And so those same ones that did have Dogtra that said, and there was one of my buddies in South Carolina that field trial, and I'm about 100% positive he doesn't have it anymore. So it is a different. But now, like I said, I do know guys that squirrel hunt, coon hunt. I think even the rabbit, they came out with that mini collar. It's really good. I mean, the features, again, if, when we're hunting and bear hunting and you're constantly looking at those handhelds and you're constantly looking at the screen in your truck and so it's a little different for the fact you're always trying to see, hey, are they bayed? What are they doing? Are they cutting there? So, when you're deer hunting, they're headed towards the, they're headed to the Ralphie field. So you're constantly looking at the unit a lot more. And when you have that on your phone, it's a much more difficult thing to do. When you are, again, rabid dogs, I mean, unless you're on some of these old swamp bunnies we got around here, but most of the time they shouldn't leave out of hearing. You shouldn't have to look at your box.
Sure.
The only time you're going to have to do that is, hey, your buddy calls. And, they're running something different than a bunny. And, that's when you're going to go in, and that's when you're going to work on correcting them off of it. Again, the Dogtra unit, that is one thing. You can go and individually pick each collar. The way that Garmin has it now, if you've got to correct multiple dogs, that's the other thing. It's just so much faster. You literally can scroll tone, or scroll shock, scroll tone shock. And so you're able to break dogs off of something much quicker with the units just because it is a unit in your hand and it's much more accessible to those features.
So in the future, I love that you shared that Garmin came from a company that is into so many other things and has a lot of technology just to start with.
Yep.
So do you see that remaining the case in the future? Do you think they'll just continue to be the dominant force out there?
Well, here's what I say all the time. The one thing Garmin's done, so if everybody thinks about tracking collars and how much has changed over time, well, it didn't change for 20 or 30 years. So if you do think about, and I mean, it's, if you think of wildlife and you think of Johnson, there are still so many things that they could have done in them collars. Remote collars could have been put in. They could have become rechargeable. They could have had lights on them. They could have had, so there's all kinds of cool things that could have even been done back then, and the technology was there. But you didn't have these companies taking the money that we were spending and put it back into the company. So the one thing I'll at least give Garmin is I can tell you, and we deal with the engineers every day, and like I tell, if they don't produce a product that's worth spending any extra money on, there's sure no reason to buy it. But at least one thing they are doing is they're taking a large portion of that money they're making and they are putting it back into technology and trying to make the units better. And if you look at the new 25 collars that have come out, they now have replaceable GPS things. The batteries are much easier to replace and friendly. They're starting to finally listen. They're trying to make things that hopefully we'll be able to service and are going to be much longer term. Battery life is 3 times more than what actually really now with the dynamic mode, battery life is the same battery that was in the mini collar is giving you 5 times more battery life than what the mini collar originally was.
Wow.
I mean, so they are working hard to make these things better. You've got sleep modes in them now where they can actually physically be turned off, and you can actually get weeks out of the collar and still turn it back on. So I can tell you, we've dealt, and don't get me wrong, I mean, there's been times I wanted to pull my hair out myself, and I'm not going to say, and again, they went through a stretch on mini collars. Let me tell you, if we're listening to Rabbit guys, I promise you, if you think it was bad on y'all, it was way worse on us. And it was just a terrible batch, and it was 2 batches in their lifetime, right at the beginning and right at the end. And other than that, the collar I had them, they were great, but it ended up being a component problem, and it was really beyond Garmin's control, and they would still warranty out and all. But I mean, you got to remember, when we send out thousands of collars, and we're getting even hundreds of them back, it's a headache for us too. So I promise, but that's what we try to work hard, is make sure we understand. Just like us, we try to take care of people like we want ourselves taken care of, and so we try to get them out as quick as we can, and try to do what we can. And it's sometimes people got to realize we don't make them. But, we do work hard, and when there are problems, that's at least one thing. I've got direct lines to the engineers, so when there's problems, they're trying to correct those as quick as they can. They don't want a bunch of collars back either, I promise.
Oh, no.
But I will say this, the new 25 collar so far, out of everything we've ever sold for Garmin, we're getting the least amount of calls and almost no returns. And the 300 has also been very, 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 very good too. It had a couple little bugs the first couple weeks it came out, but even then, those have been corrected very quick, and everybody using them seems to really like them.
Well, that's good feedback. Well, Billy, this has been very helpful.
I'm knocking on wood while I'm doing that, so I'm just making sure it stays the same. But I really feel a little more confident than I have in the past. And and these collars are small; they're about the size of a mini. They got different color lights for guys that do run at night, which, I'm going to say is probably a little less in the rabbit world. But, my daughter during the summertime, she'll take the dogs up to the fox pen over there, and it's just amazing. You can tell even at nighttime which dog's doing what.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a fantastic feature. I have a lot of friends that hunt quite a bit at night, especially in the summer. So I know they'd love that. But is there any, as we wrap up, I wanted to ask you, is there anything new that you can talk about that maybe you've caught wind of that's coming that you're excited about? Or,
Oh, God, if you'd have called me at another time, but right now we have just gotten through a really big launch of new products as far as it goes, because it normally takes time. There's always things we'd love to see change, and I know there's things that have been talked about, but really, the emphasis was getting the 300 out. And I mean, like you said, I think anything we see in the near term is going to be just improvements on those. I don't expect to see anything big there. We'd always love to see a bigger unit screen. So anybody that rides around in a truck more, everybody wants to see a screen that would work with the dogs and different things. But, I think you're going to slowly see with time. They're always working on getting collars smaller. They're always working on more features, and as technology keeps getting better, because really, if you think about it, since they've started, just the GPS technology alone is what almost tripled battery life. So as they keep getting better in technology, I mean, you're going to see, 10 years from now, I hope we have a whole lot better product than we have now. But at the same time, I also hope that anything that's sold today will still be able to service 10 years from now too. So it is a part, because we do understand everybody is, and a lot of this stuff is really expensive. And so it is nice now knowing that we're going to be able to go in and fix things and all a whole lot easier than we've been able to do in the past. And again, batteries are going to be easier to replace. The way they seal, they should seal good. I think we're going to be good for a good long time. So, it makes it more comfortable if somebody's going to put a big investment out there that it's going to stay good and it's going to be able to be warranted or fixed for a long time.
Well, Billy, thank you again so much for sharing. I know this has been really informational to me, and I'm betting there's a lot of folks out there that learned a lot from listening to this interview today. But is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have that you want to talk about?
I don't. Really, anything. I mean, we could go on. I mean, like I said, I could talk all night if you caught me off of, kick me off of the angle just a little bit of one side or the other. But, as far as the out, I mean, I can tell those people this. There's a bunch of sales for Black Friday going on. It really doesn't help the Beagle world much. It's the TT15X. But there are lots of antennas, different stuff. We have some used products. If guys are looking at swapping up, if people have the 15s, especially the guys that have had problems, everything's still working in any kind of shape that we can sell. We literally get probably 15 or 20 boxes of trade-ins most days coming in.
Well, how do
we have a really good process there.
How do people find you? So this is a good place to plug. So how do people find you? Do you can people go online? Is there a website they can go to? Do you have a phone?
Yeah. I mean, we're outdoordogsupply.com, but pretty much if you Garmin, if you Google anything Garmin, anything Garmin related tracking, I mean, really any of it tracking in the dog world. I mean, we're very strong online, so we're going to come up. We'll be right there in the front on almost anything you could Google there. If you want to look in the trade-in programs, all that. But it is Outdoor Dog Supply is the actual website. And we've got a full team of people that are there to service and all that. So you can always call. The phone number 757-639-2500. 757-639-2500. We're right out of Chesapeake, Virginia. We're literally, our office is 1 mile from the Carolina line. So I am a Carolina resident. I'm actually I'm in Shiloh, North Carolina. We've got a house down there, and I'm a Carolina resident, and I hunt in Gates, North Carolina. So no, we're about as intermingled. I'll tell you the one thing I'd love for Garmin to do is make a HuntView chip that had both states in it.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, maybe somebody from Garmin's listening.
All of us guys that live on the line hunt in Virginia and North Carolina. And the guys in North Carolina go up and hunt in Virginia in the late season. Mm-hmm. So,
well, very good. Yeah. Well, Billy, again, thank you so much. And I really appreciate your time. I know you're a really busy guy. And coming into the holidays, I couldn't think of a better time to talk about new products, what's out there for the folks to choose from. And now they know where they can go get those things for Christmas. So.
Well, and if there are any questions or anything, I'd always love to do a follow-up. I mean, anybody has any questions, or like I said, I mean, there's a very, very, very knowledgeable staff at the store. You can even catch me there every once in a while, but I'm not going to lie. I'm not there as much as I used to be. We do. I mean, this is what we do for a living, and I think we're at about 27 or 28 people there between shipping, making collars. We have a heck of a team. So, and we have about 5 or 6 people that do nothing but take calls and service and troubleshooting, and it's we have a heck of a little team over there.
Very good. All right, well, thank you, sir. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, and everybody have a wonderful hunting season. It's just getting riled up good.
Thank you for listening to Buff in the Rough, and remember to like and subscribe if you want to be notified when we have new content available. And please send comments and suggestions to buffintherough@gmail.com. Join us next time when we'll talk to a veteran houndsman and hear all about his experiences in chasing game for many, many decades.